Welcome to the dark side of HOAs. House with gardens, smiling face with horns. Ever had a run-in with your homeowners association that left you scratching your head or clutching your sides in laughter? You're in the right place. Join us as we dive into the wild world of HOAs, sharing tales of power trips, ridiculous rules, and the everyday battles that make HOA life so memorable. Sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh, cry, and maybe even vent a little. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story from the HOA Twilight Zone.
Buggies, Barnyards, and the HOA Showdown in Smicksburg. In the sleepy town of Smicksburg, Pennsylvania, where the air was filled with the scent of hay, horse-drawn buggies rattled down country roads, and the biggest drama was whether it was time to start harvesting the corn. The Miller family lived peacefully on their farm. They had tended to their land and animals for generations, with no thought of what anyone else thought. That is, until the suburban development arrived. The development, named Rolling Meadows Estates, was an idyllic community of modern homes with pristine lawns and, of course, a homeowners association, HOA, that was determined to keep things perfect. And leading this HOA was none other than Jenny Thompson, the self-proclaimed queen of suburbia, who had moved from the city in search of peaceful, controlled living. To her, peace meant no noise, no smells, and most importantly, no farm animals within eyesight. And oh, the smells. It all started innocently enough with a letter, a perfectly polite but passive-aggressive letter. Dear Miller family, it has come to our attention that the aroma from your farm animals is quite unpleasant for the residents of Rolling Meadows Estates. We kindly ask that you resolve this issue within 14 days to maintain the beauty and harmony of our community. Sincerely, Jenny Thompson, President, Rolling Meadows Estates HOA. Jacob Miller read the letter, his brow furrowing. What in tarnation is this nonsense? He muttered, tossing it to Sarah. Another letter from that woman, I'm sure, Sarah said, not even looking up as she fed the chickens. I'll deal with it later. But Jenny wasn't going to stop there. Oh no. Over the next few weeks, more notices arrived, each one more ridiculous than the last. Noise violation, apparently. The rooster crowing at dawn was disturbing the peace of the suburban utopia. Animal odor violation, because pigs didn't smell like roses. And finally, violation for unsanctioned agricultural activities, because having cows on your farm was, apparently, a violation of HOA policy. Jacob, now thoroughly annoyed, scratched his head. Since when does having cows count as unsanctioned agricultural activity? Sarah rolled her eyes. Since Jenny moved in, apparently, she's a walking HOA nightmare. But the straw that broke the camel's back came when Jacob received a letter stating he had voluntarily joined the HOA when he sold a piece of land to help with the development of Rolling Meadows Estates. The letter was signed, of course, by Jenny, and Jacob had never agreed to anything of the sort. Jenny had simply forged his signature. This woman has lost her mind, Jacob grumbled, tossing the letter on the kitchen table. She thinks she can just make up rules as she goes. But Sarah wasn't one to sit back. Enough is enough. I'm calling Amos. He'll set her straight. Amos, the town lawyer, was no stranger to ridiculous cases. When Jacob showed him the forged document and the ongoing harassment, Amos laughed loudly. Jenny Thompson? She's about to find out she can't push people around in Smicksburg. Leave it to me. As Amos worked behind the scenes, Jenny escalated her antics. She began driving through the Miller property multiple times a day in her shiny, overly polished SUV, glaring at Jacob's farm animals. On one occasion, she even parked in front of the barn, arms crossed, and glared as if she were an inspector from some sort of manure police. And then came the incident. One afternoon, as Jacob and Sarah were driving their horse-drawn buggy into town, Jenny saw her opportunity to make a statement. As she sped down the road, her eyes narrowed when she saw the buggy. With a dramatic flair, she slammed on the gas, swerving toward them in a blatant attempt to run them off the road. Move it, you animal-loving peasants. Jenny screeched as she barely missed the buggy, sending the horse into a panic and nearly causing a pile-up with the other cars. Sarah, utterly unfazed, turned to Jacob. Well, That's one way to make a statement. Jacob sighed, his hand on the reins. We need to report this. She's gone full Karen. Jenny, however, wasn't content with merely trying to run them off the road. No, she needed to make her mark as queen of the HOA by also attacking their local Amish market, where Sarah sold homemade jams, preserves, and pies. The market was popular with locals, and Sarah's goods were a cherished part of the community. But Jenny, with all the grace of a bull in a china shop, stormed into the market one day, hands on her hips and an air of self-righteous indignation. "Excuse me," Jenny demanded, marching up to Sarah. "But these pies of yours, these unsanitary, unregulated pies, are a serious health hazard to this community. I demand that you shut this down immediately." Sarah blinked in disbelief, but said nothing. Instead, she calmly smiled and nodded, as she had been taught. "We will pray for you, ma'am." Jenny scowled, not understanding the peaceful nature of Sarah's response. "I've already reported you to the health department. Consider this market shut down." Sarah said nothing more, choosing instead to focus on her work. Jenny stomped out in a huff, her plans thwarted. It wasn't long before the town had had enough of Jenny's tirades. The sheriff, a quiet man who had never quite understood the appeal of HOA drama, came by after hearing of Jenny's latest antics. "You can't just go around driving people off the road and harassing local businesses," he told her, his arms crossed. "That's not how Smicksburg works." Jenny scoffed. "I'm doing this for the good of the neighborhood." "Well, ma'am, you've got about as much understanding of this community as a pig in a tuxedo. I suggest you calm down before you end up in a lot more trouble." That's when Jacob decided he'd had enough. He knew it was time to take Jenny down a peg, and he wasn't about to let her get away with her antics any longer. With Amos by his side, they took Jenny to court. The evidence was overwhelming: her road rage, the forged documents, the harassment of the market. The court was packed with Smicksburg residents who had grown tired of Jenny's antics. The judge, a no-nonsense man named Judge Hank, didn't waste any time. When Jenny stood up to make her case, she was immediately cut off. "Miss Thompson," Judge Hank said, "I'm not sure what you think you're doing, but you've made a complete fool of yourself. You can't forge signatures, run people off the road, and harass local businesses. The case is dismissed. And as for you, well, I suggest you find a new hobby." Jenny's face turned a shade of crimson that could have been seen from space. She sputtered, but the damage was done. The crowd erupted into applause. But the real cherry on top came from the sheriff. He stepped forward and addressed Jenny with a smile that could only be described as smug. "Ma'am," he said, "I think you need a new job, and maybe a little time off the road." Jenny, utterly defeated and humiliated, slunk out of the courtroom, muttering something about filing complaints and getting her lawyers involved. As for Jacob and Sarah, they couldn't help but laugh. The victory was sweet, but the best part was seeing Jenny's reign come to an end. The people of Smicksburg, fed up with the Karen at the top, rallied around the Millers. The new HOA president, Greg, who preferred fishing over rule enforcement, declared that farm animals were now welcome in the community. And Jenny? Well, she took her Karen attitude elsewhere, preferably somewhere with less hay and fewer cows. Jacob and Sarah rode home that evening, waving to their neighbors, the smell of farm life in the air, the sweet taste of victory lingering like a fresh batch of Sarah's famous strawberry jam. And from that day forward, the Millers never had to deal with another HOA complaint again.
Thanks for joining us on this HOA roller coaster. Got your own HOA horror story? Share it with us. Subscribe and stay tuned for more jaw droppers. Until next time, keep your grass short and your patience long.